So I've just been sitting here musing on a few little things in my gym gear, as I usually am when I when I do these posts. There's not much preparation that goes into these things. They're kind of off the cuff and they come through when they come through. That's what, I don't know, if you call it channeling, you can call it that, or it's just, you know, the wisdom drops. And I want to drop in about the tendency that we have. You know, we've been talking a lot about moving from 3D to 5D, and the tendency that we have when we're making that leap, that journey, that jump, to get trapped in the analytical mind. Right, as I was saying in my last post, that 4D, between 3D, 5D, that's really where analysis paralysis happens. And we've done that a lot for long enough. The healing work, the shadow work, the digging, the scratching, the looking at the past lives, the looking at the childhoods, the looking at the... It's good, don't get me wrong. It's amazing to have an understanding of where our patterns, where our behaviours, where all of the things come from, the root of those things. But we were never meant to replay them over and over again and continue to kind of use them in a way to argue for our limitations, because that's what can happen, and that's what does happen, whether we realize it or not. Even the most conscious, you know, and awake and like switched on of us can find ourselves doing that. And it's normal that we do that, because that's what we have been trained into doing, right? We've grown up and, you know, been born into and been trained into overthinking everything, analysing everything. So much so that it's kind of taken us away from our true power, which is when we are in our full essence, when we are in our highest frequency, when we remember who we really are. Like you hear me and others say that. Sorry about the banging in the background there. Actually building a sauna for me downstairs. When we are talking about the truth of who we really are, what we're talking about when we're speaking about that is that our essence, right? That's the super conscious mind. That's our higher self. That's even beyond the soul. You know, Papa Kai, who's the grandfather of Andean lineage that I work with, he used to say, and I'm looking at it right now as I look into my beautiful pool over here, if you ever want to remember who you really are, look into a puddle of water and find the sun's reflection. That's you. You are light. So in that expanded state, or that state of awareness, which I believe is what we are all popping through into, and we are noticing more and more the density that we are not, and that is why it feels uncomfortable, because all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, you know, you're having these, whether you realize it or not. Some people will be very, very aware that this is happening, and other people will be really quite unconscious of this happening, but it's happening. Whereas you remember more and more your true nature, then anything that isn't that feels dense, right? Because you know yourself as light. So anything that's not of that frequency of light feels heavy, right? So the nature of light, the nature of high frequency energy, is that it naturally illuminates shadow. You think of it, you go into a room and you don't turn on the dark switch, do you? It doesn't matter how dark and shadowy the room is, you turn on the light and the light illuminates the shadows. So there is a very big difference between bypassing, which is rife in the so-called spiritual movement or communities, more rife than it is in the within people that are so-called not awake, which is absolute rubbish, because that's a whole other video for another time. But spirituality and what we see as being spiritual has become so toxic. Like, it is not it. And if you think it's it, then look again, because it's really not it. Doesn't matter how much yoga you do, how much meditation you do, how many you know, whatever's, the awakening process comes through stillness. It comes through authenticity, being authentically you, and loving those parts of yourselves and remembering your true nature that is beyond that, you know, touching that essence of yourself. And when you do, and I know you've all had moments of it, I've had many moments of it. I've had sometimes days on end of it, sometimes it goes completely. With the medicine that I work with, this is how I work. These days more and more, of course, stuff is going to come up, and of course we're going to, you know, we work through the portal of the body and through our feeling to move it. But the frequency and the energy that I work with in ceremony is of that highest frequency of love and that highest frequency of light, so that when you touch that true part of yourself, when you touch your essence, when you look through those eyes into your traumas, into your suffering, into your patterns, into your pain, you are able to zoom out and you see it from a higher perspective. You see it through the truth, through the eyes of love, right? Through the truth of who you are. And then you see it in a way that's like, wow, you see the perfection of it. You see how perhaps you've been a bit hoodwinked to loop in these repetitive cycles and patterns and actually thought processes that keep us back and hold us down. So I just spoke with a dear friend of mine, and she's an amazing woman. I can't even tell you, like, the genius that comes through her and the way the things, you know, and the uniqueness of what comes through her is phenomenal. Yet forever since I've known her, she has an intense fear of being seen. And she's done so much processing around it, like so much. And I've heard over the years her talking about this, and now she's stepping into something new. And she said it again, and I said to her, hey, I'm going to invite you now to leave that 3D bullshit behind. Stop it. Stop arguing for your limitations. Stop going back and trying to find out which lifetime it comes from or which time in your childhood it comes from, and just decide, I don't do that anymore. I used to. It served me in one way or another. But when the thoughts come up, when the looping comes up, when the desire comes up to go down and spiral down into those things, you have a choice in those moments to simply say, hey, I see you, mind. I see you, ego. That's not the truth of who I really am. That's a story that I have told myself over and over again, so much so that it has become a belief, but it is not the truth. And I decide now that that's not true anymore. And you can say to yourself, is that true? Is that really true? Is it true? You know, it's everything that we've been through on the journey gets us to the point where we realize, holy shit, I've been holding on to this stuff for way too long. And it's not a matter of even having to go through a process and pick it apart to put it down. It's just deciding. Because that's what the 5D is, right? It's not bypassing, it's alchemizing. It's a completely different thing. Bypassing means you ignore it, right? You ignore it, you ignore the feelings, the sensations that come up around it. You can feel, and you should, well, you don't have to do anything, there's no shoulds, but it is recommended and extremely helpful to allow yourself to feel the sensation of the emotion that arises, but realize that you are not that emotion either. Emotion is of the ego. You know, the sensation in your body, if you track where when you're feeling something, if you track it, it's in the body. And you can lean into that sensation. That is the way that you know, when we hear feel to heal. It's not, it's through working with the sensation. It is such a powerful gift. It is alchemizing the heaviness into light, the pain and the suffering into love, right? It's not all light and love. Woo-hoo, I'm all light and love, positive thinking. Oh, I need the light. That false light matrix is as damaging as the 3D matrix, I have to tell you, you know, because that's not authentic. Spirituality is being authentically you and being with what arises, but at the same time knowing that that's not the truth of who you really are, and that you have it within you the decision to decide differently, moment to moment. And you have to retrain the subconscious mind. You've got to retrain your brain and your nervous system into experiencing things in a different way, telling yourself a new story. I mean, this is rewriting your program one-on-one, but it does take a decision, a bit of discipline, and you can do it. And that is the difference between 3D. You know, in the 3D, we're largely unconscious. We're pretty unawares of all of this stuff that's going on, right? We're stuck in the ego, we're stuck in the stories, we're stuck in the whatevers. And then as we start to awaken and we go into 5D, it's almost like the analytical stuff ramps up, right? Because we want to heal it all. We want to fix it all. And we think that healing and fixing it means picking it to pieces and picking it apart. Where what it actually means is witnessing it, feeling it, not mentalizing it, actually feeling it. So I hope that's helpful for you. I actually have a really beautiful process that I use with a lot of my students called Feel to Heal. And it's an exceptionally powerful meditation for you to use any time that you feel stuck. Anytime that you feel like you're being taken out by the old story. It gets you out of your head, back into your heart and back into your body, where the power really is, which is through the portal of your heart. So I'm going to gift that to you. If you'd like to receive it, please do, and I hope that it's helpful for you. Okay, so lots of love to you. That's my little musings for today. Look, it's so beautiful. The rainy season has kicked in. My trees have all blossomed. This is a very generous tree. It's the last one to get green. I love that. People are like, is that tree dead? And I'm like, no, that tree's not dead. It's generous. It's allowing all the other trees to get green before it takes the water. Something to be said in that, isn't there? All right, lots of love, everyone. Bye for now.